2020 meeting. It's going to open it, be called to order at 6 p.m. Could I have roll call, please? Ray Perone? You're muted.
There we go. Ray Perone here. Treasurer.
Charlie? You're muted. Okay. They can't hear me, Paul. Nobody can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Charlie?
Charlie,
Eager, present?
Clerk.
Seth Burdick?
Here.
Sylvia Janau?
Present.
Okay. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there any public comment?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Can you
Go
hear me?
ahead. Yes.
Cynthia Gardner, 94 School Street. I was hoping to request that public comment be moved to the end of the meeting.
Is that it?
That was my request, yes.
Any other public comment? Okay, so hearing no other public comment, I'm going to close public comment. Is anyone recording? No one's recording. Okay, all right. So the first order of business is to elect a chairperson for the Prudential Committee. Do I hear any nominations? Don't hear any nominations. Well, I will nominate myself and for a position of chairman. Any discussion?
I do have one question.
Sure.
Are we going to elect maybe a vice chairman just in case in the event that somebody can't, you can't make the meeting or the chairperson can't make the meeting can go on with a quorum of 2?
Yeah, we could probably do that even though it's not specified in our bylaws, but certainly we can elect a vice chair and perhaps look at when the bylaw committee meets, changing that provision.
Sounds good.
So is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any takers on being the vice chair?
I'll go for vice chair.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. So we have 2 committee assignments. Sylvia, I was thinking there still needs to be some work done on the Prudential, on the Policy Advisory Committee's work from last year. Would you be willing to do the Policy Advisory Committee again this year?
Of course. I'd
Okay.
love to continue.
I have sent your recommendations to the other 2 committees and, asked them for input. So perhaps they can come to your meeting and give you input there.
Excellent.
Okay. And I will, Seth is new. He doesn't have to be on a committee. So,
I'll gladly join, but I don't know how useful I'll be at this point on a committee, but I can be a body.
that's okay. So I will do the bylaw committee. Okay. And the next order of business is appointing a clerk. Mr. Eager, would you like to continue as clerk to the Katuitt Fire District?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. And that takes us to the treasurer's report. Ray, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, it was my end. I didn't hit the right button. like to cover a number of things. I think I've sent you some information. I'll start off with solar. Finally, after 5 years from when Fran started the effort, it looks like we're finally going to be receiving proceeds from our solar contract. We purchased 1.67% share of the Dartmouth solar project. Initially, it was to be delivered to us in the form of credits on our electrical bill, but it has evolved now to where we will receive checks for the proceeds of these credits. This gives us a little more flexibility in terms of how we want to handle it, but basically it'll be revenue and expense. The estimated revenue is going to be initially about $4,000, which represents 26% of last year's actual utility costs. So it is a very significant cost reduction going forward, and it will go forward for approximately 20 years. At least that is the schedule for the contract. Discussing it with Mr. Nutter, who is the liaison between the project asset manager and ourselves, he anticipates that it would be, the checks will begin in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So that we will look forward to receiving those.
Ray, can I interrupt for a minute and just make it one comment?
You want to comment on each subject?
No, just on the solar, that's all. But if you to understand the savings even better, our current projection budget for streetlights for next year is $7,000. So with the $4,000, that would lower the cost of the streetlights to $3,000, which is, you know, a bargain.
Definitely,
So that's,
definitely.
sorry, thank you.
Okay. The next subject I was going to cover is financial. I'll try to do that very briefly. Revenue appears to ended up the year positive, about 200,000 over budget. However, it is within those numbers, we only achieved a 90% collection of our current tax revenue. This means that our tax receivables will go up by that 200,000, and that is a negative on our free cash. So it will offset some of the revenue that we've derived from the increased water rates, which have gone up 100%, and finished out the year at approximately 939,000. On the expense side, each budget is at or below each article, excuse me, is at or below budget, with the exception of our COVID expense. Right now, we will have a deficit for our COVID expense in finance. And what I am looking at is the possibility of consolidating all of our COVID expenses within the fire department. We have approximately $75,000 of COVID overtime, plus I believe about an additional $4,000 of PPE within the fire department, additional 4,000 or so of PPE in the water department, and $2,000 in the finance department. By moving all to the fire department, it will make it easier, I believe, to execute our application with MEMA for reimbursement for those expenses. And it will avoid a deficit within the finance department which gets cumbersome in how you deal with it. It's allowed this year to have COVID deficits, but it would simply make it easier to move it to the fire department. I've mentioned this to the chief. The chief and the commissioners are looking at it, and they want some guidance to make sure that this is a proper move, which I will follow up on with them. But overall, even with the approximately $84,000 of COVID expense, we look like we will be turning back about $270,000 of expenses. So that, coupled with the revenue surplus, looks like it argues for a good free cash, not as good as we had this year, but a good free cash. I haven't gone through the detail calculation, but it looks positive. Any questions on the financial results?
Oh,
I have a couple of questions. Ray, this is Silvio.
Yes, Silvio.
All right, I was trying to follow what you were saying with the spreadsheet that you sent for the FY 2020 June report. And I mean, when I looked at the spreadsheet, everything looked great. We actually exceeded our revenues from our budgeted revenues, even though they were higher than FY 29, and then the same thing with our expenses, slightly higher than FY 29, but way lower than our budget. And then your detail sheet was great. Thank you for providing that. The only thing that I had a question about was that I didn't see here, and you just mentioned it, was a COVID fund. And so I have a couple of questions. So first is, do we have a separate fund for COVID expenses for the district?
No, we do not. And obviously, the virus hit well after the budget was set by the annual district meeting. The state allows to run deficits for COVID and provides an extended period to amortize that deficit. I'd like to look at the possibility of categorizing everything together. One of the stumbling blocks is the fact that the major component is fire department overtime.
Right.
And I'm not sure we can move that around out of the salary category.
All right. Thank you. The second question that I have is, do you know if the district applied for CARES Act funding, or if the district's even qualified for CARES Act? Because as you know, there's the state issued up to $500 million as a relief fund to local governments. And again, just personally in my community that I work in Eastham, we received about $400,000 in CARES Act funding, which has really helped with the expenses related to COVID. And that also includes overtime as well. So I was wondering if the district has looked into that, and if not, if we can look into that, because that would definitely help ease the pain.
The CARES money went directly to towns, and it's up to towns to allocate it. If the town of Barnstable chooses to allocate it to fire districts, that would be most welcome. I suspect that will not happen. We have applied to MEMA, the MEMA-FEMA reimbursement, which will reimburse 80% of our COVID expenses.
Great, because that was going to be my third question. If there was no CARES Act, if we had considered applying for MEMA-FEMA. But as you know, as you mentioned too, it only reimburses so much of it, and it also takes a long time to see that reimbursement, usually.
Yes.
So.
Yes, it does.
But I'm glad to hear that, you know, we've kind of exhausted every available possibility. So thank you for doing that.
Any other questions?
no. Seth, any questions?
It takes me a while to unmute myself. No, not really.
Okay. Thanks, Ray.
Okay, and the next point I wanted to talk about was MASCAR. The first time we filed with MASCAR, which is the state program that reimburses our ambulance revenue for the lower realization on Medicare transports. And it was largely Lisa's efforts, the assistant treasurer, which accounts for some of her extra hours, that generated the $33,544 that we got from MASCAR. So that was a very nice gift. It was actually delayed. We were supposed to receive it in June, but because of a mix-up on their part with the state, we didn't receive it until July.
Thank you, Lisa. That was great.
The other topic I wanted to talk about was insurance. We looked at a new policy this year, a new workers' comp policy for the fire department. We had budgeted $44,000 for this, which was in line with what we had paid last year for this injured at work policy. But our agent came to us with a new high deductible plan that after we looked at, and when I say we, it's both the chief and myself looked at this, we think it is an extremely attractive plan for the district. For a premium of $18,300 with a $10,000 deductible, we can save approximately some $26,000 in insurance premium this coming year. The existing policy that we have also has a deductible. It's $1,000, but it's $1,000 for each incident. So if you have repeated incidents, you could equal this $10,000. In addition, the new policy provides for what they call McNamara coverage, and that is the state required life insurance policy for call and part-time firefighters. So it's, I think it's an excellent choice, and I've proposed that we go ahead with that policy, unless you have any objections.
Any discussion?
Oh, thank you both, you and the chief, for finding that additional savings.
I think that's great. We can use all the savings we can get.
Thank you. The next item is a cost item, although it's a very minor one. The auditors brought to my attention the fact that we don't have a treasurer's bond. We have coverage through an insurance policy. This has been the coverage that we have had before I started. They pointed out that it really should be a formal bond. I've checked with the other districts, and most of them have a bond. And so it looks like for the cost of about approximately $300, I'm going to be purchasing a bond for $100,000 coverage for myself.
Does the assistant treasurer require a bond?
Not by state law.
Okay.
And I think she would be covered by the insurance policy, as I am right now. And I think that's adequate for the purposes of the district, safety of the district.
Okay,
Finally, if there's any comment on that?
no.
Finally, I'd like to talk about refinancing. You might recall that at the annual district meeting, someone raised the question about the possibility of refinancing. And I gave a negative response to that. Well, my other district went to market this past month and had got a lower interest rate than we had the year before. So our finance advisors have looked at the situation and are recommending that we refinance the Lowell tank bond, which is 10 years into its 20-year history with 10 years to go, for $1 million. And we will be able to do that at some $200,000 of savings net of the cost. The easiest way to think about it is a mortgage refinance. Our current coupon rate is 4%, and the current market rate is around 0.8%. They have calculated that if we were to float a bond of $795,000, that would generate a premium along with our budgeted debt service payment, would be able to retire the existing debt and lower the amount outstanding from $1 million to the $795,000. The lower amount would carry the same coupon rate, but would cost approximately $200,000 less to service over the next 10 years. I just got this information last week. I've looked at it. We're also looking at including the 2 bands that we were going to refinance this year, which would provide some additional savings. It's a rather numerically intense exercise, and I want more time to look at it myself. But I think the overall concept is favorable to the district, much as refinancing your house would be. It will probably require a special district meeting to authorize the new debt. So I will leave it to you to when you would propose to schedule that. The initial schedule that Hilltop Securities proposed to me would start next month, which may be a little bit too soon to get all our ducks lined up. So I've suggested we may want to push that back a month, depending upon when you thought it would be appropriate to hold that special district meeting. I think the way I would recommend we proceed is a special Prudential Committee meeting focused on it, where I can bring the information to you to demonstrate to not only to you, but to myself as well, that these savings exist, and then decide on when we would hold a special district meeting to approve it. Any questions or comments?
I have a comment and a question. So just for the sake of clarification and for the public who are watching the meeting at home, just to, again, put it in layman's terms, we have a $1.1 million general obligation bond for 20 years at a 3.8% rate that we have 10 years. So we're basically halfway through that bond. We have about $1 million left to pay on that bond. And what you're suggesting is to take that bond and convert it into another 10-year bond, but with a lower rate. So basically you don't extend the life of the original bond, but so by paying it at the same time at a lower rate, we save about $200,000 over the life of the bond. Is that correct?
With one slight change. The coupon rate stays the same, but it's the coupon rate, the interest rate stays the same, but it's the same interest rate on a lower principal. And that's where you generate the savings.
Okay. And then my comment based on that as well, because I got a little confused with that, is when we do schedule that Prudential Committee meeting specifically to talk about this issue, if we can make this information as easy to digest as possible to non-financial people, that'd be great, because I have a little bit of an understanding what you're trying to do and it makes sense. But even myself, I'm a little confused. So I can't imagine some of the folks at home might be a little confused and as well. And we've also heard, time and time again that, they would like more detailed information and easier to understand. So if that's something that we could focus on, I would really appreciate it.
Definitely. I think that's a very good suggestion, Silvio. As I said, when I recommended we have a special Prudential Committee meeting, it's not only to make it clear to the commissioners, make it clear to me as well, so that I can stand on 2 feet and justify this to the commissioners and the public at large, because it is a big step, and it's one that I don't want to take lightly.
Thank you.
So you're all set, Ray?
I'm sorry, that's it. Any other questions or comments?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Freedom Hall. We've had some inquiries about using Freedom Hall for various events. I'm not clear at the moment. Prior to the annual meeting, I went to the hall and I spaced chairs out 6 feet apart, and and set up the tables for the way the committees would be. And it worked out to, if social distancing of 6 feet apart, worked out to about 30 people. So I don't know if that's going to change. If the recommendation from the states changed or not, I'll have to look at that. But some people are looking at Freedom Hall, and they're concerned about how they have to clean the place. And I was hoping that the chief would volunteer a member of his staff to bomb the place for us. So nobody has to be, cleaning. I don't think one user is the Mosquito Yacht Club. They want to hold their annual meeting. And we've had an inquiry from the Friends of the Library to hold their annual luncheon. Paul, Paul?
Absolutely, we're happy to fog the Freedom Hall at any time.
And you don't need to fog it before you do this. There hasn't been anybody in there in months. The chairs were taken out, but they were fogged before they were put back. So you would just have to do it after the event.
No problems at all.
Okay, all right. And the other thing at the hall was the main water main going into the building developed a leak about 3 weeks ago, and the water department came and fixed that for us. So that's good. Now, matters not reasonably anticipated, but
I do have a comment on that previous topic, if you don't mind.
yep.
I'm pretty sure, and the chief maybe can confirm this or, update me. But last I checked, the state had banned gatherings of more than 25 persons in an enclosed space. And for gatherings where you have 25 people or less, you have to have 8 people per 1,000 square feet. So if we do decide to allow gatherings at Freedom Hall, they definitely have to be in line with those guidelines issued by the state.
Well, that pretty much knocks out those 2 groups, because 8 people per 1,000 square feet would allow 12 people. It's 1,500. The hall's 1,500 square feet. So I guess we can't use it if that's the current recommendation that the state's still sticking with.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Again, I could be wrong, but that's from what I remember. On July 2nd, that's the latest.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. So I had an email today from one of the water commissioners, and they wanted to know if we could hold a special district meeting to, what he said initially was to purchase a new vehicle for the water department, because one member of their staff is having to use their personal vehicle to get around. They really haven't discussed it at a meeting. So I gave them some suggestions of things I thought that they could look at, before we hold a special district meeting, to use their enterprise account funds to purchase a new vehicle. which is what the suggestion was. And I suggested that they could look at possibly renting a vehicle or leasing a vehicle, or just having more than one person in their trucks with masks on. The firefighters are, 3 of them sit in the ambulance, and same for a fire truck. So they're going to be discussing that, but they might want to have a special, join us in the special district meeting to purchase a vehicle. So they'll have 4 vehicles for their 4 field people. So I'll keep you updated on that. And then Silvio, did you get the minutes for June and have a chance to read them?
I did. I have no comments.
Okay, all right. So I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes of June 22nd, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We hope to have some May minutes soon. They were done, and apparently they're circling someplace out in the internet. So they're being redone. All right. So for today, is there any public comment?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I had a couple questions. I had one for the treasurer. I was wondering, is Hilltop Securities our financial advisor for the district?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And my other question was, do you know when we'll be going back to in-person meetings? I know the fire commissioners held their last meeting at Freedom Hall, and it seemed to work out well, and I was hoping we could go back to having your meetings also be public.
Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're above the 11 people that are, it's hard to, we'll just have to discuss it and look at it. The problem is that if more than what did I say? 12, 14 people show up, we'll have to cancel the meeting because they can't attend. So any
Just
other
something to look.
Pardon me?
It would be something nice to look forward to in the future.
Yep, right. Okay. Thank you. So-
Carol Zais, I would like you guys, even if you do in-person meetings, I don't know how the fire commissioners did meet on July 14th at Freedom Hall, so there has been someone in Freedom Hall, and
Yes.
sooner than the last 2 months, as you said, first off, but they also recorded the meeting with an audio, with a video, and I don't know, maybe Chief Rude I haven't seen anything posted. I honestly haven't looked, and I'm just wondering if you do go to in-person meetings, that again, we try to find a way to do a video, because it's so much easier to see who's talking when you guys can't identify yourself before you speak every time. So that would really be nice. That's all.
Okay. Well, I watched that video, and it was the sound quality was not good. It was very difficult to hear.
Okay,
So if that's it, everybody all said, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.